That's high speed. It's a great brainwashing process.
So was the Abbey Gate incident?
That was when we pulled out of Afghanistan.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when they were giving the Taliban back control of the airfield, and
all those
civilians were trying to get in, all of our interpreters, and we had other Americans that were outside of the perimeter that we were trying to find and bring back. Tim Kinney has a really good documentary about it called I'll think of it later, but it's on Amazon, I believe. It's a great documentary.
We'll add the link in there, and thank you.
We'll remember it shortly.
Seriously, thank you, Tim Kennedy, for going and stepping up above and beyond the call of duty, because he goes independently, and him and people like him,
to
and
go
all the
and
people you work with, to go and retrieve people.
They were rescuing like Americans and people who had already been vetted and approved to come back that otherwise wouldn't have a way to get back, and
they'd just be hunted down by the Taliban and killed in public, in front of their families.
And these are all the people that were left there.
Yes.
Some of them, yeah.
That's why this was the most embarrassing moment of the United States.
That's one reason.
One of them.
The $3 trillion worth of military equipment was another reason they're not having parades with and stuff.
But the Abbey Gate,
laugh about, but
there was a bombing at Abbey Gate. Abbey Gate was one of the entrances to the airfield, and 13 Marines and soldiers died. And most of them were lower enlisted, like privates, private first class, E5 sergeants, and this is a real tragic thing.
Still American soldiers.
Yeah, and it's something that could have potentially been prevented had things gone different,
It could have been
Trump had a plan for this.
Trump had a plan for this, and Sean Ryan's interviewing him on his podcast tomorrow, so that'll air on Monday, probably before this episode airs.
Shout out to Sean Ryan.
Definitely encourage you guys to go check out the Sean Ryan Show interview with Donald Trump, because they'll talk about that particular event and how it would have been different if Trump had executed his plan to remove us from Afghanistan in the right way.
Because basically, Biden's plan to pull out of Afghanistan was get the hell out of there.
And leave
everything, leave it all behind.
And leave no American forces there to sustain it. But the whole thing was Trump, I think, was trying to stop the conflict, but still leave a U.S. presence there to guard like our air bases and our equipment.
It's a very strategic place in the world. So
sure,
if World War III or something kicked off, that'd be a very great piece of real estate to hold on to, because you can transfer people from the Middle East to China, Russia, Vietnam, wherever you need to.
Well, I think, even more so than that, though, is that the U.S. government does a lot more good, and the U.S. military does a lot more good than people think. We're not in there trying to invade and take over their territory. What we're doing is backing up people who support things like human rights violations and corruption in that government. And so there are people who are trying to fight against the Taliban, which is a highly corrupt and highly, just wicked organization that treats people in a very negative way. And there's a lot of people who are trying to stand up for themselves in those countries, but they're not trained. They don't have the tools. They don't understand what to do. And the U.S. military goes in and trains those people. This is the job of the Green Berets, right? And the Delta guys that go in and they train forces, so the police force can actually have somebody to back them up if something goes really south and there's a warlord over there from a Taliban warlord that's just terrorizing a town. They have some way to understand tactically how to approach that situation, and they have some resources to actually lean on to back that up. So that's what I think Trump wanted to leave there, was a skeleton crew of people who was actually able to
help support the local government.
Yes,
because at the time
they provide some overwatch.
I think they had some schools, and like women were able to start driving and being educated, and getting to a little bit more up to speed in modern times and having more human rights.
Yeah, no more Sharia law.
Right, but then when we pull out abruptly and the Taliban takes over, like the 20 years of progress that we helped influence, whether good, bad, indifferent, however you view that, all got wiped away, and it left a lot of vets and people who served over there feeling like, man, like we went over there for 20 years of nothing and left all his equipment and left a bunch of souls behind.
Yeah, we abandoned not only just U.S. soldiers, but Afghanis that were actually helping us.
Exactly.
They were on our side. We left so much equipment behind. I heard it was $8.5 billion worth.
People who put their local Afghanis who put their lives on the line to support the U.S. coalition and to be our interpreters and to help us get out through the lay of the land.
And then we have
promised to be like, we're going to bring you and your family.
Us.
Yeah, we're going to bring you all back to America. We're going to set you up somewhere to start a new life as you should, and they're properly vetted. And then we had to leave them behind. So then you had guys like Tim Kinney and
I forget the guy behind Stronghold, but Stronghold's another organization that does that.
Yeah.
His name, who is the founder of
There's
it.
the guy's Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck was a part of the Save Our Allies also.
So it seems like Biden's administration didn't really have a plan in place. I think they wanted
they fumbled. They
wanted the credit. They wanted the credit for pulling us out of this 20-year war with Afghanistan. So they wanted to get the credit for doing that with no plan in place.
Yeah, and
that's why it was the catastrophe that it was.
Yeah.
I don't think they had a plan because clearly, if you're pulling out and you don't have a plan to bring back any of your state-of-the-art military equipment, there was, you don't bring back any of our own U.S. soldiers or any of the Afghanians that helped us. So to me, he had no plan in place, just pulled us out, left everything there.
They brought back all the soldiers and Marines.
Just for credit for pulling out of Afghanistan.
At least 13 of them.
Yeah, except for at least 13 of them. But yeah,
one of them is one too many.
Instead of leaving the equipment there, I mean, we could have given that equipment to our allies around the world for training purposes. And instead, the enemy comes in, they're using it now. China comes in, they start, back engineering different stuff.
Yes, exactly. China basically owns Bagram now.
Yeah.
Or they could basically buy it from the Afghanistan.
Yeah,
from the Taliban, who's running Afghanistan now, who we spent how many thousands of U.S. lives and how many billions and trillions of U.S. dollars and years of time.
So not only is China getting these weapons too, but then it's also basically you have terrorist organizations there in the Middle East are receiving money.
Well, why did we go into Afghanistan in the first place, supposedly? Weren't we after Osama bin Laden? Weren't we supposed to be fighting?
Because of after 9/11.
Right. So we were fighting the Taliban, right?
Yeah.
So who's in charge of Afghanistan now after 20-something years of time and all those lives and all those trillions of dollars and time spent? The Taliban.
Yeah.